my mum's partner at the time, he had come home and he was covered in blood, and he was with his brother, and they walked through the door, and they was both drunk, and they was arguing. And I just remember them being very boisterous towards each other, and my mum was trying to calm the situation down. But they was drinking, and they was all drinking, my mum, this guy and his brother. And within a couple of hours, I remember he just started arguing with my mum, and I can't remember what it was about, but he'd argue with my mum, and then he'd just start abusing her. And I heard, as I was in bed, and I heard some banging, and I heard her screaming as I come downstairs, and then I could just see her getting beaten up, and she's not very big at all. He's probably like 4'11". She's tiny, and he was like 6 foot. But he wasn't just tall; he was quite largely built. And I just remember him beating her up, and he wouldn't stop. And he had her on the floor, and he was kicking her, and she'd get up and push her against the wall and punch her. And that is the first memory I had. And after that, a couple of days later, it happened again. It happened after drinking, but they were drinkers, and I'd say they were drinking partners. They would just drink, argue, and then it would lead into a domestic. And every couple of days this would happen, and it got worse and it got worse. And I remember I used to try and protect my mum. I'd stand in front of her, and he'd push me out the way. And when I felt so helpless, I couldn't help her. Everything in the house was broken. Everything. After one of these nights, you could see it. The next day, I would wake up, and I'd wake up for school, and I'd see broken plates. I'd see blood on the walls. I'd see new dents in the wall. I went to school, and I didn't tell anyone about it because I felt ashamed. So it just carried on for years and years. My mother, because she was so wrapped up in herself, she wasn't taking notice of me. I was looking after myself. I'd say probably from the age of 11. When my therapist asked me, how would you describe family life? How would you describe it? And I had to think about it, because I don't actually remember having a family life. I don't remember. I know the idea of family life. I know what my friends would talk about, and after school, when I'd go to their house, I'd see they'd come home from school and their mum would be preparing dinner, and their brothers and sisters would be there playing around, and their dad would be asking, have you done your homework? And that's family life. But when I came home from school, it wasn't that. I came home from school, and was my mum awake? Possibly not, because the night before they'd been up to maybe 7 in the morning arguing, and he'd be abusing her. So no, they wasn't up. And I'd just go in my room, watch telly, maybe play outside. There isn't really family life. I don't remember having a relationship with my mother. There was no relationship. There was nothing. Time and time again, this would happen. And on certain occasions, when it was just completely horrific, and the police was called by me, because the neighbours wouldn't call the police. The police was called by me, and the police would come, and when they'd come in, it was quite apparent something was going on. So they wouldn't arrest my mum's partner, but they'd make him leave. So that then me and my mum would have some time, and then she'd sit there and she'd tell me, she'd promise me that this is going to stop now, that this isn't going to happen anymore, that this was it and he was going to go. I lost trust in my mum because for years this was happening and she wasn't stopping it. And when I say years, it was for years, and it would continuously happen every couple of days for years, every other day for years, and the abuse was extreme. He would pull out knives, he would threaten her. I clearly remember one night I was standing outside the kitchen because my mum wouldn't let me get involved, because she said I was creating this, it was my fault, I'm a troublemaker, and all of this is my fault because I'm making trouble. But I still wanted to protect her. So my instinct was to sit outside the kitchen, and the door was shut, to just sit there and just to listen. And if I heard anything, I don't know what I could have done, but just if I was there, I could stop something. I could save her, but I couldn't. So it got to a point where it was affecting me at school, where the teachers would notice that I was coming in late a lot, and I was always getting in trouble. The teachers, there would be assemblies, and the whole year would be in the assembly, and all the students that were naughty or were bunking or coming in late or disrespectful in class, or things like that, they would get called out in assembly, and the teacher, the head of year, would call my name out, and because I was always late, but I was always late because I was always up till 5, 6 in the morning trying to protect my mum. So it was quite apparent to the teachers. They realised something was wrong, they didn't know what. So when I got called in one day, I just spoke to my head teacher and I just told her what was going on, and with that information they couldn't leave it, they have an obligation to do something. So they called in social services. So the social services were called, and I was to stay behind after school, and the social services would come and I explained to them what was going on, and I wanted to go. I didn't want to be there because in some small way I thought maybe it was my fault because of what my mother was saying, and I couldn't cope, I couldn't deal with it. It was traumatic, day in, day out. I couldn't deal with it. So I went into care. But the first time I went into care, it was for a couple of days, and then obviously they called in my mum and interviewed her and asked her take on the events, what I said had happened, and she would always twist it, and she'd say, "Oh, Meira, she's just an attention seeker. She's over exaggerating. It's just a bit of an argument, and she just she just likes to exaggerate and she likes to make stories." So with that, they just sent me back. And then my mum would say to me, "What are you doing? Why are you telling the teachers? Don't you think you want to go? But what about your little brother? They're going to put your little brother in care. Is that what you want? Is that what you want to do to your little brother?" And then, so I wouldn't say anything, and I'd just leave it. And then a couple of years later, because nothing was changing at school again, and I'd tell the teachers again, and then I got put into care again. And this time, the same, I was in, I think, for a couple of weeks, and then again my mum came in, gave her take on of the events, and they took me back. They sent me back home because my mum had speech them and told them that I was over exaggerating again.